Did you know that one man, before the age of 33, created the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen and died without losing a single battle? This is the epic story of Alexander the Great, the king who became a legend. A name that echoes through time like a thunderclap, a figure whose very life blurred the line between history and myth. Born in 356 BC in the ancient city of Pella, the capital of Macedon, Alexander was destined for greatness long before he drew his first breath. His father, King Philip II, was a brilliant strategist who had transformed Macedonia from a small kingdom into a regional powerhouse. His mother, Olympias, was fiercely ambitious and believed her son carried divine blood, claiming that Alexander was descended from Zeus himself. From childhood, Alexander was told he was not just a boy, but a man of destiny. By the age of 13, Alexander's education was entrusted to one of the greatest minds in human history, the philosopher Aristotle. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander absorbed knowledge of philosophy, politics, literature, medicine, and science. But Aristotle also planted a seed of curiosity, a hunger to know the world beyond Greece. While most princes were trained to be kings, Alexander was being trained to conquer the world. At just 16 years old, Alexander was left in charge of Macedonia while his father campaigned elsewhere. When a Thracian tribe rebelled, Alexander didn't hesitate. He crushed the revolt with brutal efficiency, founded a city on the spot, and named it Alexandropolis. It was the first of many cities that would bear his name. By 18, he commanded troops at the Battle of Cheronea, where Philip defeated an alliance of Greek city-states. It was here Alexander showed his brilliance, leading the cavalry charge that broke the enemy line. Even as a teenager, he was already a warrior who demanded respect. But destiny would arrive sooner than expected. In 336 BC, Philip II was assassinated during a grand celebration. The crown passed to his 20-year-old son. Many expected Macedonia to fracture under such a young ruler. Instead, Alexander struck fast and hard. He executed rivals, crushed rebellions, and marched south to reassert control over Greece. When the city of Thebes rose against him, Alexander gave them a choice: surrender or face destruction. They chose to resist. Thebes was annihilated, its walls torn down, its citizens killed or enslaved. Only the house of the poet Pindar was spared, a gesture showing Alexander's respect for culture, even amid bloodshed. The message was clear. Alexander was not just Philip's boy. He was a king who demanded obedience. By 334 BC, Alexander turned his gaze eastward. His father had dreamed of conquering Persia, the most powerful empire in the world. Alexander would make that dream his own. At the age of 22, he crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor with 40,000 men. Upon landing, he performed a symbolic act. He threw a spear into the soil, declaring Asia as his prize, a gift from the gods. The first test came at the Battle of the Granicus River. Persian satraps massed their forces, confident they could crush this young upstart. But Alexander, leading his cavalry head-on into the river, shattered their ranks. The Persians retreated in chaos, and Asia Minor was his. City after city fell, some surrendering, others facing brutal conquest. Alexander was already earning a reputation, swift, fearless, merciless. But the true challenge lay ahead. In 333 BC, at Issus, Alexander faced King Darius III of Persia himself. The Persians vastly outnumbered the Macedonians. Darius brought his family, confident of victory. But numbers couldn't save him. Alexander led a devastating cavalry charge directly toward Darius. The Persian king, terrified, fled the battlefield, abandoning his army, his treasury, and even his wife and daughters. Alexander treated Darius's family with dignity, but the damage was done. The world had seen the great king of Persia run from a 23-year-old conqueror. After Issus, Alexander marched south toward Egypt. Along the way, the legendary city of Tyre defied him. Tyre was an island fortress thought to be unconquerable. But Alexander was not a man who accepted limits. He ordered a causeway built across the sea, turning the island into a peninsula. After 7 brutal months, the walls fell. The city was destroyed, its population massacred or enslaved. This siege became one of the most astonishing feats of military engineering in the ancient world. In Egypt, Alexander was welcomed as a liberator from Persian rule. He visited the oracle of Amun at Siwa Oasis, where priests supposedly hailed him as the son of a god. Whether myth or reality, Alexander believed it. He founded a new city on the Nile Delta, Alexandria. It would become one of the most important cities in history, a beacon of culture, trade, and knowledge. But Alexander's greatest showdown with Persia was yet to come. In 331 BC, at the Battle of Gaugamela, Alexander faced Darius again. This time, the Persian king assembled perhaps the largest army ever seen, hundreds of thousands of soldiers, chariots with blades on their wheels, and even war elephants. The ground was chosen specifically to favor Persian cavalry. Any normal commander would have been crushed. But Alexander was no normal commander. He used brilliant tactics, luring the Persians into overextending, then pierced through their center with a wedge formation. Once again, Darius fled. The Persian army disintegrated. The Persian Empire, which had ruled for centuries, collapsed in a single day. Alexander entered Babylon, the jewel of the East, in triumph. From there, he swept through Persia, seizing its treasures, burning Persepolis in a drunken rage, perhaps as revenge for the Persian invasion of Greece a century earlier. He was no longer just the king of Macedon. He was now king of kings, ruler of an empire stretching from Greece to the edge of India. But conquest did not quench his ambition. In 326 BC, Alexander marched into India. At the Hydaspes River, he faced King Porus, who commanded a massive army with war elephants. The battle was fierce, unlike anything Alexander's men had seen. The elephants caused chaos, trampling soldiers, breaking formations. But Alexander adapted, surrounding the elephants, cutting off their support. In the end, Porus was captured. When asked how he wished to be treated, Porus famously replied, "Like a king." Alexander, impressed by his courage, not only spared him, but restored his kingdom and made him an ally. Yet India also marked the limits of his empire. His men, exhausted after years of campaigning, refused to march further east. For the first time, Alexander had to turn back. His dream of reaching the edge of the known world would remain unfulfilled. On his return journey, Alexander faced new challenges: harsh deserts, rebellions, and political intrigues. In 324 BC, he held the mass wedding at Susa, where he and his generals married Persian noblewomen, attempting to merge East and West into a single culture. He envisioned a world united under one ruler, himself. But not everyone accepted this vision. Many of his men resented his adoption of Persian customs, seeing him less as a Greek king and more as a foreign tyrant. In 323 BC, Alexander returned to Babylon. He was only 32 years old at the height of his power, planning new campaigns into Arabia. But suddenly, after a banquet, he fell gravely ill. Within days, he was dead. The cause remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Was it fever, poison, or some other curse of fate? With no clear heir, his empire quickly fractured, carved up by his generals, the Diadochi. But Alexander's legacy was eternal. In just 12 years, he had conquered the known world, spreading Greek culture, language, and ideas across continents. This fusion of East and West became known as the Hellenistic Age, shaping art, science, and philosophy for centuries. Cities he founded thrived long after his death. Even today, the name Alexander commands awe. Alexander was more than a conqueror. He was a visionary. Undefeated in battle, ruthless to his enemies, yet capable of mercy and brilliance. A man who believed himself divine, but who also suffered the human fate of mortality. His empire died with him, but his legend never did. This is the story of Alexander the Great, the man who conquered the world and became immortal. And if you want more epic journeys into history's greatest mysteries and legends, make sure to subscribe, share, and join us again, because this is Quest Revealers.